Hey guys, my name is Gabby, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be filming my December wrap-up. I can't believe I'm already filming my last wrap-up of 2018. It's just so crazy. It went by so fast. I'm also going to be putting a link in the description for all of my wrap-ups from all of 2018. This was the first month that I read all 3 of my Book of the Month selections that I received that month for like the first time ever, which was really cool, and they were all amazing. In the month of December, I read a total of 9 books, which amounted to 2,454 pages. As far as ratings go, I gave 2 books 5 stars, 5 books 4 stars, and only 2 books 2 stars. So it was definitely on the higher end this month, now that I think about it. Genres, I read 4 thrillers, 3 romances, 1 horror novel, and then 1 nonfiction/science book. And then I read 4 male authors and 5 female authors. I don't think there was a single month this year where I read more male authors than female authors. Alright, so the first book I read this month is The Liar's Room by Simon Lelic, and this was an ARC sent to me by Berkeley. This book comes out January 15th, and this is an adult thriller. It follows this therapist who is currently in a therapy session with this young boy named Adam. Most of the story all takes place on one day during this intense therapy session. Throughout the story, we get a lot of flashbacks into their lives, and through the flashbacks we learn how he knows her and why he's there, and it's just like really creepy and intense. And yeah, it's hard to talk about this book without spoiling anything for you. It was a pretty decent thriller. There were 2 plot twists that happened that I didn't see coming, which I really enjoyed. I had a great time reading this, so I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read this month was One Day in December by Josie Silver, and this was one of my Book of the Month picks this month. This is a cute, romantic, Christmassy read. It takes place around Christmas, but it also spans 10 years throughout this book, so it's kind of a Christmassy read, but also not really. Like, you don't have to read it during Christmas time. It follows this girl named Lori who sees this guy at a bus stop, and she thinks he's like the most beautiful, gorgeous man she's ever seen in her life, and so she spends the next year trying to find him. Like, a year or so later, her best friend in the whole world introduces this dream guy as her new boyfriend who she loves and she thinks she wants to marry. We get this crazy love triangle situation in this book. This book kind of reminded me of the book The Light We Lost because of the way that it spans like 10 years and that there's this like epic love triangle happening over a long period of time. I absolutely loved the friendship though between Lori and Sarah. That was like easily my favorite part of this whole book because their friendship just felt so real and so raw, and I just adored them together so much. And to be honest, I wasn't actually a huge fan of Jack, which is like the guy that they're both basically like in a love triangle with for the whole book. Like, I don't think he's all that interesting, and he's kind of an asshole most of the time. But this book low-key also reminded me of the movie Something Borrowed. This book definitely had its cheesy moments for sure, but I could get past it because I was really in the mood to read something like this when I picked this up. So the ending was hella cheesy and totally rushed in my opinion. But, I mean, it was still a cute book, so I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. The third book I read this month was An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan. This is another one of my Book of the Month selections this month. This one is also an adult thriller, and this one follows this girl named Jessica who's a makeup artist, and she overhears about this study from like women ages 18 to 32 or something, and it's an anonymous study that you go enter into, and you answer all these moral questions about what you would do in certain situations in life. And Jessica signs up for it, and the psychologist who's running the show of this study starts to become obsessed with Jessica. Really interesting thriller in my opinion about the study of obsessive behavior and stalkerish behavior. This psychological study really got into Jessica's mind and made her question everything she was doing in her life, like whether it was morally right or wrong, and just like, what would Dr. Shields think if I didn't do this, or if I did do this in this situation, like even outside of the study. Like, it was just very fascinating to me. So I feel like if you're a fan of psychology, like if psychology really fascinates you, then I would highly recommend this thriller to you because I just thought it was really entertaining to read about. The psychological study in this book just really intrigued me a lot, and this includes one of my like favorite tropes in thrillers where like one person deals with 2 people in a marriage and you kind of have to like pick sides and try to figure out who you can trust in the marriage, and it's like the three of them just get tangled in a bunch of lies. Like, that's kind of one of my favorite tropes in a thriller, and this one did it very well. So I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars, and like, I am just as shocked as you are that I love this book so much, because if you don't remember from last year, The Wife Between Us, which is another book from this author, was one of my least favorite worst of the year last year. So I was completely shocked when I ended up loving the hell out of this book. The fourth book I read this month was Verity by Colleen Hoover. This is a psychological thriller from Colleen Hoover. Some people are saying that this book is more of like a romantic thriller, but I would say that this feels more psychological thriller to me and less of a romance. I mean, there are definitely some romance vibes, but like, I wouldn't categorize this as a romance in my opinion. This story follows this girl named Lowen, who's a writer, and she gets the opportunity to finish the book series for this super famous author Verity Crawford, and she gets the opportunity to finish it because Verity was involved in a really bad car accident, and now she's in a coma-like state where she doesn't really respond to anything. Like, she's still there, but she's not there. So Lowen moves into Verity and Jeremy's house, which Jeremy's her husband, and she wants to like get into the mind of this author so that she can complete her book series. Verity and Jeremy have experienced some really horrific tragedies over the past couple of years. This book starts off with a really horrific and unsettling car accident scene, and from that moment on, you're just like set into this mood of like a very unsettling, very disturbing read. So for me, this book was so interesting and so intense. I could not put this book down. Like, this book, I stayed up until 2 in the morning finishing this book because I literally had to know how it ends right there. Like, and it's been so long since I've like actually stayed up late just to finish a book because I literally couldn't put it down. Like, I love that feeling so much. This book definitely reminds me a lot of Taryn Fisher's writing, but in a good way. Like, I just loved the writing style in this. It was so dark and so gritty and just like disturbing, but like in the way that I wanted it to be. Like, it was so creepy. Like, there were some scenes in this book that were so creepy, I just got like chills up my back, like how freaked out I was. I was like, what the fuck, dude? The ending of this book freaking slayed my life and made it one of my favorite books of all time. It was so good. Like, I really hope Colleen Hoover writes more psychological thrillers like this. Check this one out. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. Fifth book I read this month was No Exit by Taylor Adams, and this was my third and final book of the month pick that I read this month. This one is also an adult thriller slash kind of a horror novel about this girl who is stuck in a blizzard in Colorado on the way to go visit her parents, and so she has to pull over at this rest stop. At this rest stop, there's about 4 other people there, and when she goes into the parking lot, she sees a child in a cage in the back of a van, and she knows that one of the people that she's with at this rest stop is a kidnapper. And so she's trying to figure out which one of them it is and who she can trust, and oh my god, you guys, this book was so fucking intense, and it gave me so much anxiety, and I felt so claustrophobic in this book because, like, she's stuck at this rest stop, and it's snowing like crazy, and there's no help, and she doesn't get any signal on her phone. Oh man, this book gave me, like, a similar amount of anxiety that The Cabin at the End of the World gave me, but, like, I literally felt like I was holding my breath this entire book, and, like, the writing was just so good. Like, the pacing of this book was so good. It just keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. But yeah, I felt like my heart was fucking racing trying to figure out what was gonna happen, and it was just so good. The whole idea of this book is really terrifying. Like, the idea of being stranded somewhere to me when it's snowing, especially if you're in a dangerous situation, like, that is one of the scariest things in the world to me. So this book definitely played off of that personal fear of mine. So I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason why it didn't get 5 stars for me is because the ending kind of like started to lose its momentum, in my opinion. Like, it just kind of went on a little too long-ish, in my opinion. That's like such a little nitpicky thing, but like, it wasn't quite a 5-star read for me, but oh my gosh, you guys, this one was fucking intense and so good. The 6th book I read this month was Kulti by Mariana Zapata. Finally finished this book. I've been reading this book on and off since October. This one is a new adult sports soccer romance. Wasn't a huge fan of this book, okay? I'm not gonna lie. I can't even describe this book without explaining to you why I didn't like it so much. But like, I know Mariana Zapata has a huge fan base, and the only book I've loved from her is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. Everything else I thought was kind of disappointing and just like, whatever. This one I know I have an extremely unpopular opinion about it because a lot of people do love this book. And I will say the one thing I really did love about this book is that Sal, the main character girl, is a badass. I appreciate that she stands up for what she believes in and she defends her family no matter what. There's a lot more that I didn't like about this book, like the fact that Kulti is a fucking asshole who gets away with everything because he's like this huge legend of a soccer player or because he's so hot. The main character, Sal, is 27, but sometimes she acts like she's 13 years old. She literally has to think of him pooping to control her sexual attraction to him. Like, she literally brings this up again and again and again. Like, just think about him pooping. Like, what is she, 13 years old? Like, what? Third reason is because the writing is so repetitive and obnoxious, especially with this whole, like, pooping thing. She also comes up with the nickname The German, and she refers to Kulti as The German, like, literally every fucking 5 minutes, like, the German this, the German that. Yeah, and I couldn't deal with, like, the amount of her thinking about him pooping. Like, she literally says the phrase pooping, like, every other page. Like, I am not kidding. I'm not a huge fan of soccer anyways, but, like, I thought I would love this book regardless because so many people said it was so great and, like, it didn't matter if you like soccer and, like, it was so much about soccer. Like, the romance barely even started, like, 150-ish pages into it, and the first 150-ish pages is just her playing soccer and talking about soccer and living and breathing soccer, and it's about soccer, you know what I mean? It is. So I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. Right, so the 7th book I read this month is The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This is also a book that I've been reading on and off since it released in like August, I want to say. I wanted to read this book because it's a sports new adult hockey romance, and Elle Kennedy wrote one of my favorite series of all time, the Off-Campus series, and this book series is following the characters from the Off-Campus series, but it's following their friends. So like this one's following Summer and Fitz, and Summer is the little sister of Dean from one of the last books. That was one of my favorites, so I really wanted to read this one because of that, and unfortunately I just didn't click at all with these two characters, and I feel like these characters are 100 times less interesting than the characters in the Off-Campus series. Summer drove me nuts because she spends so much of this book trying to convince the reader that she's not superficial, but then she always is talking about how like her dad got her into this Ivy League college and how her Audi is 3 years old and it's so old in her opinion, like she needs a new one. A lot of, you know, superficial things like that. And then Fitz isn't much better because he always is talking about how the hockey players are like gods at his school and he's basically a god. He can get any girl he wants anytime. He's also like, but on the inside, way deep down in there, I'm just a nerd who's like really shy about girls and like whatever. Like, it's just annoying. Like, okay, you're a god, we get it. You can get any girl you want. I don't know, I just thought both of these characters were very shallow and just boring as shit to read about, and I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars as well. So the 8th book I read this month was Sour Candy. This is a novella that's a horror novella. It's only about 80 pages. It's this very, very creepy story about this man named Philip who goes into a grocery store and he sees this little boy in there who is screaming at the top of his lungs with his mom. The little boy offers Philip a piece of sour candy, and when Philip accepts that piece of sour candy, it kind of changes his life for the worse. So I can't really explain too much about this without spoiling it for you because it's a novella. It's a really short book, but oh my god, this book was so creepy, and I read it really late at night, which only added to the creepiness of it for me. Not only did the idea of this little boy really creep me out, but also the idea of the antler people that he talks about really freaked me out, and like looking at that cover I was like, what the fuck, like. But yeah, I thought this was a very good horror novel. Like, it definitely creeped me out, kept me on the edge of my seat, and it confused me at times, which is why I ended up giving it like 4 out of 5 stars. This one was weird and creepy, and it's short, so you can read it in like an hour. Final book that I read this month is Brief Answers to the Big Questions by Stephen Hawking. This is a non-fiction science book about Stephen Hawking. This is Stephen Hawking's last book that he wrote before he died earlier this year. I've always been fascinated with science and astronomy, like anything to do with outer space just really, really fascinates me, and I love the idea of this book because it's a fairly short book and he's just answering some of the big questions that humans think about, like for example, is there a god? How did it all begin? Is time travel possible? What is inside a black hole? Is there other intelligent life in the universe? And can we predict the future, and how do we survive on Earth? You know, like stuff like that. I've never read anything by him before, but this definitely made me want to pick up more of his other stuff. But my favorite sections in this book that I read about were definitely the one, Is There a God? How do we shape the future? And will we survive on Earth? And is there other intelligent life in the universe? Like, those were definitely my favorite sections to read about. I think the basic consensus that I got from this book is that we're all fucked if we stay on Earth, and we should start exploring space immediately for another planet, because we have fucked this Earth up and we will not survive here in the long term. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. Those are all the books I read in December. I can't believe it's already the end of the year. It's just so crazy. It happened so fast. How many books did you read this month? What was the best book you read this month? What was the worst book you read this month? And also let me know if you've read any of these books that I just mentioned and what your thoughts are on them. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.